Hey everybody, this is Rice Barnes, Montana the Young, back here with you again. So today is March 1st, 2022. It's actually my birthday, and I turned 42 years old today. But I've just been absolutely wrecked by work. I just had almost no sleep the past 3 days. Had this monster of a card waiting for me this entire time, and just didn't have the time to open it. So what better time, I guess, than my birthday to do that? So, anyways, this card has a backstory to it. And I don't know if I want to tell the whole story, but I mean, you can already see that it's one of those cards that requires eBay authenticity, the authenticity guarantee now, the highly controversial, highly criticized program where I believe eBay has farmed out authentication responsibilities to CSG for now any card worth or that cost over $500 on eBay. And the controversy is that the packing that they use, the two elastic bands that they use in the corner of the semi-rigids, doesn't really secure the card, and so half the time you end up seeing the card sort of part way out. And so, okay, there's a magnet here. Your collection is now upgraded. Okay, so definitely, form over function right now, sort of. It's supposed to be fancy. It's supposed to make you feel like what you bought was amazing. And my card actually wasn't. There was no problem with it. I've seen other people who have had issues with their card slipping out, and I mean, now that you're looking at the card now, you could see why I would be upset if the card did slip out. A lot of cards come all the way up to here, and then you could see a quarter getting dinged there on the side. But in this case, I can't really complain. The card seems relatively well packed. I would prefer it always in a top loader. I think that's the safest place to put a card, safest place to transport a card this big. Many of you who are aficionados of 90s inserts already know what you're looking at. This is the 1999 Metal Universe Precious Metal Gems. This is the second year that they did this in baseball, and I guess in basketball, this would have been the design of the third generation of PMGs. And for the longest time, I hated this card. I'd seen the base card of this before, and there's no shine. It just looks like cheap metal. I just never understood the reason that they would design a card like this. But over the years, I've become more and more enamored with this card. And recently, within the last year at a show, I saw one of these cards, not of this player, in a showcase, and I was just amazed by the shine. The shine is not easily captured in scans. It's kind of a subtle rainbow shine right behind kind of a brushed metal look. So you can be forgiven for not realizing its true beauty immediately. I mean, I think that if it didn't have this incredible shine, that it would not be nearly the card that it is. But because it plays off the light that it does, the way that it does, it makes a huge difference. So this card, I believe, is in my top five most wanted cards. And I saw one go recently on eBay for $4,000, $4,000, and then add another 50 on top of that. So $4,050, and I I didn't even bid because it was during my hiatus. Then somebody I know in the hobby who is a casual collector of bonds ended up being the guy who picked it up. So I got to see it up close in the Facebook group and elsewhere, and it confirmed what I thought, that this card is beautiful, especially this picture. Like 1999 Star Rubies is a major card in our hobby, more major now that basketball loves it as much as it does. But the picture is really lacking, whereas this one, as pointed out by one of my friends, it's just an incredible picture of Bonds going back on a ball. I mean, it's focused. It's an action shot. It does justice to one of his great skills, which is his skill in the field. And well, I don't know. Let's see. One of the controversies was that it was hard to take out this card without bending it. But since paper is kind of bendable and malleable, like metal is. I think it was probably okay that I bent the top corner. So I don't know what condition this card is in. So let's just have a look at that. And the edges are going to be chipped up. You can see a spot there, and there, and there. I don't actually mind the rough cutting here. Let's look at the back. So the story of this card is actually quite fascinating. I guess I should start over. So that first card that came available on eBay was numbered, I think it was 3 out of 50, and I didn't offer at it. It ended up being over $4,000. It was just too much money to spend on a card at that time. Then a couple weeks later, the 2 out of 50 shows up on eBay, and I know the owner of the person who bought the first card, so he encouraged me to go grab it, and I said that it wasn't the right time for me to be buying cards like that, so I kind of just sort of sat back and decided I wasn't going to go for it. Of course, just as the bidding was about to end, I threw in an extremely strong bid and lost to the eventual winner. And I don't know who won that card. That was the 2 out of 50. Then I go back and talk to this associate of mine who encouraged me to get the second copy of the card. He told me that actually the seller has a bankruptcy issue, or a replacement issue of the card that hasn't been released to the public yet. And when it came out, I was unimpressed. I don't like cards that leaked out after the fact, or were somehow illegitimate, or could somehow be counterfeit, maybe printed or pressed, numbered, aftermarket. Like it really doesn't do it for me. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, maybe I should take a shot at it. Ultimately, I took a shot at it and won it for a price that was much less than the legitimate copies. But because I knew the provenance of this card, because I knew that it came from the same person who also had the 2 and the 3 out of 50, and because I was told that the original owner of this card was a family member of an employee of Skybox, who also had the 2 and 3 out of 50 of Cal Ripken Jr. and also the replacement non-stamped Ripken, that more likely than not, these 3 Bonds and Ripkens never made it into packs. Some executive at Skybox, it sounds like they just took it off the conveyor belt, took it home with them. So, I don't know how many of these cards actually made it into packs. The consigner of this card explained that he was there back when this happened, and that the industry just doesn't know how severe a problem this thing was. And he estimates that only 25% of the big cars that we all love actually made it into packs. Especially from this company, a lot of them just stayed in the pockets of those who were there in the manufacturing process. So I know a lot of really veteran collectors who have never seen the unstamped version. Presumably a copy printed in case one of the legitimate ones in the packs were damaged. They could put a stamp on there afterwards and mail it out as a replacement. The fact that nobody's ever seen a copy of this bankruptcy slash replacement issue, I mean, it means a lot. It means that this could very well be the only copy, or one of very few copies of this out there. And of course, the hobby recognizes and appreciates pack pulled, but ironically, the 2 and the 3 out of 50 weren't pack pulled. Right? They were lifted right off the factory conveyor belt by somebody who worked at the company, and then kept in a private collection for decades until finally one of his relatives ended up just selling it out in a huge auction. So the fact that this card came from a legitimate source and came with five other legitimate cards from the set, three from Barry Bonds, three from Ripken, made me feel like this was something worth grabbing and keeping as a placeholder until I had the real thing. So this is a very exciting day for me. I mean, this is a top five card for somebody who really thought that PMGs were overrated. It's really ironic now that I'm obsessed over one PMG, and then of course very soon after that obsessed with another one. I am a condition hawk, but I accept the condition of this card as being just fine, given the way this card is designed to mimic the look of metal. And here the backdrop, I mean, I just thought it was interesting that Fleer, Topps, and Donruss, pretty much every baseball card company has thought about using metal as a motif. Here you have the Molten Metal Fusion Titanium from Skybox, an offshoot of Fleer. It's just paper, but it's described as molten metal. This one is Stars and Steel, so it does have metal in the name of the product itself, but that's a holographic domed card, so that's not really it either. And then this is a precious metal, literally 24 karat gold, I believe, is in this card. So these two cards are actually made of metal, but all three of them recall the metal motif, as does this one. So this is a heavily metal mail day. Metal, not just with regard to the metal universe, but metal overall. And I mean, this card over here is one of the more underrated cards in our hobby. It's spectacularly shiny. I mean, can you just, I don't want to tip everything over right now, but look at that shine. I mean, it is an incredibly shiny card. Beautiful. And compare that to this. And this card is quite stunning in its own way. Just the way the rainbow foil and the rainbow colors attempt to push through this brushed, textured, metal-like surface. There's something hypnotic about this card, and I'm really happy to have it. There's another chapter to this story that will be written tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, when another card arrives in the mail, and I have to follow up with today's story because it relates to it. But this, I believe, is totally legitimate. It's likely to be a card that was produced by the company as a replacement. And in talking to a high-end Griffey collector who had never seen one of these before, he said, you know what, you should hang on to that. Like, I was afraid I overpaid for mine, but he said, these could be extremely rare, right? And it's possible that this is the only one that still exists with no serial numbering. So anyways, very exciting day. I'm not at all sad I pulled the trigger. It's so gratifying to knock a major card off your want list. This has been gnawing at me for a while now, maybe a year, because it's one of those cards that I didn't realize was awesome until it was kind of like too late, and cards gotten too expensive by the time you realized you wanted it. So I was fortunate to nab this at a relative bargain compared to what other people are paying for the legit versions. Okay, well, anyways, that's it. I guess I have other mail that I don't have time to get to today. This is the one card that's been gnawing at me, and finally I've been able to take it out of its packaging and finally enjoy it for a few moments with you guys. Let me know what you guys think. This card was about a little bit less than 1/3 the price of the legitimate issue. What do you guys think about this issue? Would you want it? Would you not want it? How much more would you pay for the pack issued than you would for a card that was not designed to go out in a pack? Does it change your opinion of supposedly pack issued cards when you find out that they were never literally issued in packs in the first place? They were lifted and never found their ways never found their way into packs. Does that influence you? It did me for sure. The fact that I knew that this, along with a bunch of other Ripken and Bonds, ones that were supposed to be pack issued, never made it into packs, lifted this in my estimation. This card was likely printed and cut off the same sheets as the other cards, and just they didn't print the serial numbering on there just because they wanted to save it in case the 17 or the 23 out of 50 came damaged and somebody complained. So, anyways, it's a long-winded way of saying this is a big PC day for me. It's a beautiful card. I'm not even remotely disappointed. Wow, spectacular. All right, until next time.